Imagine you're standing in a grand royal cart. You're watching what looks like a harmless game of dice unfold, but you absolutely know, it's actually the very first domino in a chain of total, utter catastrophe. Well, today, we're diving into a fascinating text from antiquity in this explainer, Vidura's desperate plea against a rigged game. Let's really step into that tension, shall we? We're going to unpack how Vidura tries to stop a king from making a colossal mistake, treating his words as an absolute masterclass in rhetorical foresight.
So, we're dropping right into the middle of this high-stakes action with a seriously blunt reality check. Vidura just comes out and says it. Gambling is the root of dissensions. Right off the bat, he's making it crystal clear that this isn't some friendly Friday night wager. Oh no, it's a weapon of political destruction. He desperately wants the king, Dhritarashtra, to strip away this whole illusion of entertainment and see the brutal, dangerous mechanics of what's actually happening right in front of him.
Which brings us to part 1, the root of dissensions. Vidura's first major move is to expose exactly how this fascination with gambling breeds massive disunion. He argues that by allowing this game, the king's son Duryodhana is actively creating fierce, bitter enmity. It's a brilliant logical progression, really. He defines the action not by the rules of the game, but by its inevitable social and political fallout.
And to really drive this point home, Vidura names names. He doesn't just give some vague warning that people are going to get hurt. He directly predicts that Duryodhana's sins will drag entire lineages. We're talking the descendants of Pratipa and Santanu, and even their fiercest allied troops, like the Vahilikas, into total, utter destruction. It is quite literally a geopolitical disaster waiting to happen, ready to just consume their closest allies.
Moving on to part 2, metaphors of self-destruction. Having established the massive scale of the threat, Vidura shifts his rhetorical strategy. He brings in these incredibly powerful metaphors to explain the sheer, mind-boggling foolishness of what's happening. He's painting a picture of self-destruction that the king simply cannot ignore, showing them that they are forcibly driving away their very own prosperity. Take this one, for instance. The Dura compares Duryodhana to an infuriated bull breaking his own horns himself. The tragic irony here is just profound, right? I mean, a bull's horns are its greatest defense, so by breaking them, it's an act of raw self-sabotage driven by blind, raging intoxication. Vidura is basically warning that the prince is actively dismantling his own kingdom's strength from the inside out.
And then he instantly hits them with an even more terrifying image, going into the sea in a boat, guided by a child. Just think about how terrifying that actually is. You're surrendering your entire kingdom's future to someone completely lacking the maturity to navigate treacherous waters. It's a profound, chilling warning against handing the wheel over to the reckless.
That takes us into part 3, the illusion of victory. Now you might be wondering, why aren't these scary metaphors working? Well, it's because the king is currently under a spell of his own greed. To break through that, Vidura realizes he has to systematically dismantle the dangerous psychology of a leadership completely blinded by the illusion of victory. Notice how boldly Vidura directly calls out the king's misplaced joy. He says, "Thou art in raptures that he is winning." He is quite literally holding up a mirror to Dhritarashtra's emotional state, pointing out that this short-term gain is completely clouding his long-term judgment. The winning is just the bait. And you know what? The king has swallowed it hook, line, and sinker.
Vidura lays out the exact mechanism of their impending doom in this really tragic cycle. First, it starts with this absolute fascination with gambling, which quickly leads to an illusory success. But here is the pivot, the real danger. Vidura warns that it's precisely this success that begets inevitable war. And war? Well, that inevitably ends in the total destruction of men.
Realizing the king might actually be too far gone, Vidura does something desperate. He turns his attention to the rest of the room. He passionately urges the broader assembly with a final, desperate warning. "Enter ye not into the terrible fire that hath blazed forth following the wretch." He is basically begging the bystanders, pleading with them to break free from the groupthink and not blindly follow Duryodhana into a blazing fire of their own making. Which brings us to part 4. The threat of wrath. Here we reach the terrifying climax of the speech. Vidura completely shifts focus from their internal foolishness to the external reality of what they are actually awakening. He details the catastrophic consequences of pushing their opponents, the sons of Pandu, too far.
Because at this point, the game is no longer a game. It is a deadly provocation. To emphasize the sheer, overwhelming force they are provoking, Vidura gets specific. He names the legendary warriors they're about to face: Ajatasattu, Vrikadora, Arjuna, and the twins. These aren't just abstract, faceless enemies. Vidura desperately wants the assembly to visualize the unstoppable, terrifying power of these specific men once their anger is finally unleashed.
And then he just lands the punch. He poses this incredibly profound rhetorical question: who, in that hour of confusion, will prove your refuge? Once that wrath is unleashed, all the dice and all the stolen wealth in the world won't offer a single shield. It's a truly chilling moment of absolute clarity.
Finally, we arrive at Part 5, Wealth versus True Allies. After all the dire warnings and terrifying threats, Vidura makes this brilliant diplomatic pivot. He stops being the prophet of doom and shifts right into the role of a strategic advisor. He starts appealing to the king's pragmatism by discussing the true, fundamental nature of wealth and power.
He asks this incredibly critical question: what dost thou gain by winning from the Pandavas their vast wealth? He's basically reminding Dhritarashtra, hey, you are already a mine of wealth. Stealing riches through a rigged game when you already have infinite resources at your disposal, it's completely unnecessary, and frankly, it's totally counterproductive.
Vidura draws a really sharp contrast for the king here. Extracting wealth through Sakuni's nefarious tricks is absolutely worthless compared to his alternative. He tells him to win the Pandavas themselves, who will be to him more than all the wealth they have. He is powerfully arguing that people, true alliances, are the ultimate wealth. A pretty timeless lesson, right?
So, Vidura delivers his final actionable advice. Let Sakuni return whence he came. War not with the sons of Pandu. It is a perfect, haunting summation of a brilliant warning against war that history tells us went entirely ignored. What happens when the clearest voices of reason are drowned out by the intoxicating thrill of the game? Well, that's the tragedy, and it's the profound question we leave you with today.